What's going on, everybody? Rob Doster here from the Field of 68. And today we're going to bring you another episode in our NBA Draft Prospect Profile series. These are going to be dropping throughout May and throughout June, a couple a day. So if you do like this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and do hit that like button. Anything that you can do to interact with these videos, it really does help the channel. It helps more people like you find this content. And since I have you here, make sure you check out our Instagram and TikTok pages. We are going to be pumping out more unique content over there throughout the spring and the summer heading into the 2022-23 college basketball season. Like, for example, did you know that Penny Hardaway was shot when he was in college? I didn't know that. You can find that story right now live on our TikTok and Instagram pages. The links for those are in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into another Field of 68 NBA Draft Prospect Profile. Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's 2022 NBA Draft Prospect Profiles. My name is Rob Doster. I have Jeff Goodman here with me today, and we are going to be talking about LSU forward Tari Eason, who is one of the most productive defenders in the draft. I don't know if I'm ready to call him one of the best defenders in the draft. He is a 6'8", 215-pound combo forward, can guard some threes, can guard some fours, can guard on the perimeter if you need him to. He averaged 17 points, 6.5 boards, 1.9 steals, and 1.1 blocks while shooting 36% from three for the Tigers and coming off the bench this past season. Jeffrey, how do you feel about Will Wade's gem, Tari Eason?
I mean, listen, he came out of nowhere this year. He was a guy that barely played at Cincinnati, was a piece. Most people, myself included, did lists of, top 100 transfers. He was nowhere to be found last year and had a hell of a year because, he wasn't just a defender. I thought he was an elite defender in college basketball last year, but he did more than that. He made shots. And if you can be a 3-and-D guy right now with that size in the NBA, you're worthy of being a first-round pick, and you might be worthy of being drafted late in the lottery. So I think Tari Eason is different than most guys in this draft. There aren't a lot of 6'8", 6'9", 3-and-D guys. And I'm not sure he's quite a 3-and-D guy yet either, because I don't know if I trust his perimeter shot to be consistent like it was this past year. He was much better at scoring the ball. But I think he's a guy who's put himself in the equation for probably somewhere to go late lottery to his floor is probably, 22, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it really depends on two things, right? You mentioned whether or not you buy the jumper, and I think that I am. He hit enough tough pull-ups. He was a good enough free throw shooter. He made enough threes off the catch that I kind of buy that he'll be a good enough shooter that you have to run out to him. And at the end of the day, what matters less than actually making the shots is if defenses have to guard you on the perimeter and believe that you're gonna make the shots.
You have to make them at some point then.
Yeah.
To have them actually, get out and close out on you. At some point in your NBA career, you're going to have to make them. And I
think that he's a good enough shooter and he's going to make enough that defenses have to at least respect the fact that he can make threes. So I'm not worried about that. I'm a little bit more worried about the defensive side than I think people are. One thing that I keep hearing from SEC coaches is that he's a guy that you could scheme against, that you could go after when it came to game plans. And I think that he is a playmaking defender. I don't know if he'll get the steals. He'll block some shots. He's got great anticipation. He's a terrific athlete. So he worked perfect in that system that Will Wade played, where they kind of pressed and tried to overwhelm you with length and athleticism. I'm not 100% sold that he can fully buy into like a Trevor Ariza kind of a role long-term. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The comparison somebody gave me, Pascal Siakam, was a comp that somebody gave me. Pascal's probably a little bit taller, but both active, athletic, long, versatile. Neither are great shooters. So that's kind of the one that was given to me that I probably liked more than any others. But, he's going to be a guy that's probably a good piece at the end of the day at the NBA level, not a guy you're going to be able to build around unless he becomes an absolute, sniper, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, I think best case scenario, right, is somewhere in the realm of OG Anunoby. I think that's a better comp than Pascal Siakam, just because I don't know if he can kind of create for his own the way that Pascal can. And like OG averaged 17 this season while shooting 36% from three on more than 4 threes and being one of the better defenders on a team that is probably as switchable as any in the NBA for the Raptors. So I think that's kind of the ideal role for him. But again, you got to be an elite defensive player and you have to be an elite jump shooter to be able to be a guy in that role. And I'm not at a point where I'm fully buying either of those skills as elite for Tari Eason.
I mean, listen, the positive is he was a guy that wasn't even on the NBA's radar a year ago. And now he's a first round pick and he showed he can be more than just a defensive, one of the top defensive players. He showed he can give you some offense, right? He can put on the floor some, he can make some shots from three, but ultimately I think his bread and butter is going to be as a, maybe not an elite defender, but a guy who can guard multiple positions. He can block some shots. He can get out passing lanes. He can kind of create for some other people. And again, in this day and age, when you look at the NBA and how they're trying to switch everything, that's where Tari Eason can really help you.
Yeah, versatility is going to be the name of the game for him, right? Can he fit in a defense that's going to be switchable? Can he fit in an offensive system where he can kind of sit in the corner and make threes, right? That's probably what his long-term role is going to be. And anything that you get beyond that is all going to end up being upside. But the point that you made earlier is probably the most important one here. He is a guy that no one thought was going to end up being an NBA player, 8 months ago? And now we're talking about him as like, hey, maybe he can sneak into the back end of the lottery. So he's changed the trajectory of what his career is. He's made the leap. And I think
hard worker too, Rob. Talking to anybody close to that program this past year, they will say one thing about him is he worked his ass off, high character, like all that. It's probably, again, like basketball IQ is part of the question for him, especially in the offensive end and even defensively. I mean, he can get away with some mistakes because of his length and athleticism on the defensive end. But again, an A worker that'll help him at the next level if he wants to become a consistent perimeter shooter.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing is he's a guy that's always going to bring the effort. And when you're asking to be a 3-and-D guy, half of it is whether or not you have the desire to want to be good defensively. So I think he's a guy that has a long career in the NBA ahead of him, probably as an eighth man for most of the time that he's in the NBA, mostly playing a role. But at the end of the day, if you can be a lottery pick and get that first round money, get that locked in, get that second contract for 3 or 4 years where you're still making somewhere in the realm of $8 to $10 million a year, you've made yourself life-changing money. You've set your family ahead for generations, and at the end of the day, that's what's important. So he's done that. But listen, this has been the 2022 NBA Draft Prospect Profile of Tari Eason from LSU, a guy that could end up going in the late teens, early 20s in this year's NBA Draft. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We have about 40 of these profiles coming out this year. They'll be rolling out throughout May and June. So for Jeff Goodman, my name is Rob Doster. We'll see you on the next episode.